I would like to invite the President of NSV, Mr. Fred Alale, to present the welcome address. Cheers.
Round of applause, please.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for that rousing welcome. I'm not going to take much of your time today because we've got a packed agenda and I don't want to spend time on speeches, and so I'm going to be very brief. I just want to say a big thank you to you all for being here and supporting this event. It's a big event for us. It's a milestone for Nigeria, the 55th independence celebration. It's also, I would say, an audacious celebration for the Nigerian Society of Victoria. Audacious in the sense that we looked around, after the last event, we sent a survey around to members and said, what would you like to see? And people said, you did great last time, we wanted to bring an artist all the way from Nigeria to come to Australia. That is not cheap to achieve. And we've been able to achieve that, successfully bringing D'banj, an international music star, talent, all the way from Nigeria to Australia. He landed in Melbourne 2 days ago. We went to receiving him in the airport, and he's going to be wowing up later on stage here. So it's a huge, massive achievement. So thank you so much for supporting and being here. I would also like to just mention two other things. The other thing I'd like to mention is African Music and Cultural Festival. This is another event where we, as the Nigerian Society of Victoria, something we spearheaded in collaboration with the other African countries, other African leaders in Melbourne. What it's for is to celebrate our cultural diversity and heritage, to sort of rewrite the story that's been told about Africans in Victoria, to say we've got a rich heritage and showcase this to the rest of the world. So this year, it's going to be on the 12th of December, Saturday 12th of December at Federation Square again. It's the second year it's happening. We did the inaugural event last year with over 20,000 people attending it. So we'd like to see you there this year, 12th of December, marking your calendar. It's the African Music and Cultural Festival. And again, we're going to be doing it with other African communities and throwing a good show there. The next thing is Nigeria House. I'm really proud of the Nigeria House committee. You'll hear from them shortly. But for the first time again, we've got this committee that's really dynamic, really passionate, really ready to go, and very skilled. And I'm sure under them we'll realize the dream of the Nigeria House. A Nigeria House, for those of our guests that don't know, is a multifunction venue, which will be an event, a center where we can have events like this, where we can have events for other communities, can rent the hall, and also we can run summer summer school programs for our children, so do some language schools, etc. So that's what the Nigeria House is about. You'll hear more about that later on. And finally, I'd just like to thank our sponsors, because, and I would, again, it just never ceases to wow me. Now, I reached out to the Nigerian community to say, we've got this audacious thing, that we're going to go to Nigeria and bring a huge music star to Melbourne, that we're going to do it as a community, and it's going to cost a hell of a lot of money. It costs 50 grand, to bring him here. But, I talked to a lot of our sponsors, and they stood by us and they said, yep, let's make it happen. And altogether, our sponsors, the Nigerian community overall, donated and sponsored us to the tune of $45,000. Please give a round of applause. And that was almost double the record we had last year, 25 last year. The year before we had 6,000. The year before we had 2,000. So you can see the pattern. I'm excited about what we as a community can achieve together and doing it for ourselves. But then in this vein, I'd like to thank 12 of our top donors that all together between themselves donated 65% of all this money, all this 45,000. And mind you, this 45,000 is still rising because there's still people that promised me and they're still going to deliver. So I'm still hoping for a 50K. So I'd like to thank Solomon and Claire Ibe from Solometo Global Enterprises. I'd like to thank Henry and Alison Ezenwa from Eze Global. I'd like to thank Bumi and Temi Ajayi from Megalines Insurance, Smart Start Family Daycare, and iSmart Training. I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Ude and Ada Menakaya from Tunic Specialist Imaging and Women's Center. I'd like to thank Jack AK from TransJT Australia. I'd like to thank Wale and Grace Oladejo from Visitech Legal. I'd like to thank Ike and Sylvia Uzoho from Netcare Medical. I'd like to thank Dr. Akinshola and Mrs. Abe Akimbiyi from T-Glam Events and Party Hire. They did these decorations here table. I'd like to thank Tony and Trady Amaka Ukam from Cremax Saloon. I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Michael and Susan Akindeji from Nitonet Global and MK Pro Group. I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Hilary and Gloria Aneto from Ozowalu Enterprises. I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Azubuike and Ungozi Azubuike from Radskill Imaging Group. And I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Ikena and Zioni Intenda Walker and Wokolo from Incubate Foundation. I'd like to thank the rest of the other members, but I just can't stand here. But their names are in our program of events there. Check them. Please give them all a round of applause. And at this juncture, I'm going to pass on and let's move the agenda forward. Thank you so much.